So here we're going to show a quick example of taking a Photoshop file right from our graphic artist and bringing it into Storyboard and then creating up the first few screens and animations to make this a working product. At the end of this, we'll take it to the i.MX SoloX board and show you it working live on the target. So the first thing we do is we start here in Photoshop. Here we have a Photoshop file made by our designer of a home security panel, and it has all the screens already defined. Each screen is broken out its own layer so we can easily see what the artist has in mind and switch between them. Storyboard is going to take this content and bring it directly in and use the naming and groups defined here to break it apart into the initial import. So now we'll move over to Storyboard, and just coming up here and clicking the Photoshop import file, we can select our Photoshop file, the Home Automation PSD. It'll create a new project called Home Automation and we'll import it. Immediately what we saw inside of our Photoshop file is shown right on the screen, but if we switch over to wireframe mode, we'll see immediately that all the different pieces on that screen are broken out into their own boxes and easily selectable so that they can be used as buttons for our end users to touch. Also on that import, if we switch to our layer view, we can see that all the other layers that were inside there, the calendar, the main menu, the security, the settings screen, are all sitting there ready to use. Let's close the layer view, and what that means is now we can actually build up our next level of screens very quickly and easily. So if I simply say I'd like to add a new screen, we can build up our security screen. So we'll call it security screen, and we'll select the security screen, we'll select the main menu, and then we'll pick the background layer. We click OK, and if we scroll down, our security screen is here ready to use. To start tying these together, all we need to do is start tying events and actions. So here we'll select the security button and we'll say I'd like to add an action. And what we'll do is when somebody does a press on this button, so we'll select the press, we are going to do a screen fade over to the security screen at 500 milliseconds, 30 frames per second at a linear rate. If we click finish, the connection is now made. And now we can do the same to come back to the home screen. So we'll select action, somebody presses on here, once again we'll do a screen fade and we'll move back to the home automation screen, which is named after the initial PSD import. Click finish. At this point we can save and we are ready to simulate and test out our product. So here if I select on the security panel, we switch over to the security page, I select back on the temperature, we come back to our main screen. Also during that PSD import, you may not have noticed, but up and down buttons and such were defined by the artist and they were already ready to use, so they show up immediately inside of our system, ready to be leveraged. The next thing we're going to want to do is add some animation to this. So on this home screen here, if we look at it, there are other controls on here. So the designer has made it so that there's also some weather information that can be displayed for the outside temperature, and this is on this layer, but they're just hidden controls currently. So what we're going to do is animate these controls in and animate the other ones out. So we'll start off by just moving these off screen. So we'll take our temperature here, slide him up, and we'll make this content dynamic later on, but this will show you the initial building of the animations. And then we'll slide these different side panels off. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this house that you're seeing in the middle off the screen in a nice animated way and bring this other content in. So to do this, the first thing we'll do is we're going to hit our animation record button, and you'll automatically see a red box around our system here, and now we can start animating these pieces. So what we're going to do first is we're going to select this plus and minus, and we're going to bring them into the middle underneath the house. So we'll just simply use the align center button and they both come in under the house. And now we'll hold on our multi-select button and we'll select the house too, and we'll slide all these guys off screen, so we'll push them down to a Y position of 800. So now they're off the bottom of the screen, so you can see them showing up down there. At this point now we want to start bringing in our other content, so we're going to bring our clouds and sun back into the screen, so we'll just simply select them and then select middle of the screen and it'll bring it back. We want it to raise up a little bit, and then we'll pick our right control and we can simply say bring him and align him to the right of the screen, and the left control we can do the same and align him to the left of the screen. So at this point our animation is completely recorded, so we can pick stop recording and we'll call it show weather. We'll pick a frame rate, 60 frames a second, and then we'll select OK. And what has happened there is it put everything back to where it was originally, and it has built me up an animation timeline down here on the bottom of my screen. So you can see everything that was in that animation timeline here that I moved is created and shows. So these are the full names of the variables, but we don't need those right now, so we will shrink those down just to give us more space to work with, and we'll zoom out a little bit more just to even give us more space. So the first thing we need to do here is decide which way it's going to move. So first the plus and minus move in the X position in, so we'll leave those there. Next the house slides down the screen with the plus and minus, so all the Y's move. And then after that all the weather pieces that were off the screen come in. So we can just slide those, and here we've now already made a custom animation that defines how everything will work together. Now all we need to do is add that trigger point to trigger this animation. So here we can simply say I'd like to add an action. We could say if somebody presses on here, I'd like to call an animation, and this time it's going to be show weather, which we just created. At this point I can say finish, and the animation has been added. I can save, and now once again we'll test with our simulator. I'm going to click on this temperature up here, the animation slides in. So everything has acted just as anticipated, and our other screens are still ready to be used just as they were. So here we've quickly taken a Photoshop file, brought it into Storyboard, built up our next screen, added screen transitions, and built up a fairly complex animation inside of our timeline. The next piece of this puzzle is now to take it to the target. So to simply do that, all we need to do is come into here and right click and say export to Storyboard Embedded Engine, which is what we'll use to move to the i.MX SoloX today. Along with that, Storyboard also provides multiple options if your target isn't ready yet, where you can export to iOS to put on your iPad or to an Android platform and immediately test them out in a nice environment with touchscreen on top of a tablet. But today we're going to the i.MX SoloX, so we'll say export Storyboard Embedded Engine. Well, we're simply going to select the home automation demo, and we're going to say don't use the same directory as the model file. We are actually going to put this to a USB key. So we'll come down here and we'll pick this key here and we'll call it home automation. Create a directory, we'll open it, and so now it's selecting our USB key, which we can use to transfer our files over to the SoloX. And we hit finish, and it'll copy all the design files and everything required. Now that we have the home automation demo copied to a USB stick, we can easily put it into our Freescale i.MX 6SoloX reference platform, where we can come in to run it. So I've just inserted my USB stick, so I will first log in, and then I will mount the USB stick. Next, I've already copied over the Storyboard engine onto the system, so inside of here you can see the directory Linux i.MX 6 Yocto ARMLE OpenGLS 2.0-OBJ, and inside that directory are all the bin files, libraries, and plugins required to run Storyboard engine. This is copied directly from our Storyboard 4.0 release, so under the engine directory you can find all the different variants. Now to run our demo, all I'm simply going to do is, I have a script here just so you don't have to watch me type everything in. I'll just cat my script, which is just crankstart.sh. First we will set up 3 plugins with our LD library path, where our plugins for Storyboard are, and we'll add our bin directory to the path. After that, all we need to do is start up our Storyboard engine. There's a few options here for the multi-touch touchscreen, and then $1, which will just be the path to where we're going to run our demo from. So in this case, I can simply run crankstart.sh. our script file and then point it to where I mounted that directory. Home automation was the name of our demo, and homeautomation.get. Now I run that, and now on the board you can see the demo running. And if we look here quickly, the screen transitions we put in with all the pre-done buttons is all ready to go. If I come back to our home screen, I can hit on the animation, and our animation runs just as anticipated. So within minutes, I've taken a Photoshop file, brought it in, created my first couple screens and one of our richer animations, and built it up. I've also added the exit animation while off camera, just so we can go back to our home screen.